Hey guys, tonight, we dive deep into the shadowed chambers of ancient China, where beauty was a curse, silence was survival, and power wore perfume. You're not a princess. You're not born into silk. You're a peasant girl, a daughter of dirt and rice paddies. You smell like firewood and salt water. Your hands are rough. Your dreams are still small enough to fit in a straw basket. But none of that matters today. It starts just after sunrise when your mother is washing clothes and you're fetching water. The village headman appears at the edge of the road. Behind him, 2 Imperial scouts, dressed in dark robes trimmed with gold. You freeze. Every girl in the countryside has heard stories about the officials who ride out from the capital once a season, sifting through provinces for fresh beauty, like they're picking fruit. And today, it's your village's turn. You don't cry. Not yet. That comes later. They point. The village women gasp. Your mother's mouth opens, but no sound comes. The scout gently lifts your chin, inspecting your face like a rare coin. You're told you should feel honored. Instead, you feel erased. You are led away with 6 other girls. The ox cart smells of straw perfume in panic. One girl throws up. One won't stop praying. Another keeps whispering, they only take the pretty ones. We'll be okay. You know that's not true. By nightfall, you reach the outer gates of the capital. They don't even let you sleep inside the walls yet. You're kept in a stone compound where the windows don't open and the food tastes like sawdust. And the guards never smile. On the second day, you're marched to a chamber that echoes with the sounds of scrubbing and soft weeping. The bathhouse. Here, your old life is peeled away. First your clothes, then your hair washed, oiled, trimmed to court standards. A matron inspects your teeth, fingers, and feet. You're ranked on beauty, scored, labeled. It's less welcome to the palace, more welcome to inventory. Then comes the renaming. Your birth name gone. Too common. Too peasant. You are now Jinghua. It means quiet flower. You hate how easily the matron says it. That night you lie awake in a room filled with girls wearing new names and unfamiliar perfume. No one speaks. You all breathe like hunted animals. This is not a fairy tale. There's no glass slipper, no charming prince. Just an emperor you've never seen and may never meet who controls whether you live in silk or die in silence. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from anywhere special, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The palace compound is larger than your entire province. There are inner walls, outer walls gates, named after virtues. Each door has a rule. Each hallway has a ghost. You are shuffled into a dormitory where the windows are too small and the floor is too clean. You're handed robes the color of chrysanthemum petals. They itch like punishment. The older girls explain the basics. Speak softly. Never first. Never sit before a superior sits. Never mention blood, especially your own. And never ever cry in public. Some girls whisper about a friend who was taken last season and never came back. Some dream of becoming a favored concubine, living in pavilions, wearing phoenix hairpins, birthing the next heir. You're still dreaming of your mother's soup and the way the wind moved through your village trees. On day 5, you're finally brought inside the outer court. It's dizzying. Gold roofs that shimmer like fire. Marble courtyards so clean you feel wrong walking on them. And the silence. Not peace. Control. kind of silence that's enforced with discipline. You spot eunuchs in pale robes moving like shadows, their faces unreadable, their presence constant. You are nothing here, at least not yet. One of the senior ladies, the mother of etiquette, sits you down for posture training. It lasts hours. She taps your wrists if they twitch. She tightens your collar if it slips. By nightfall, your muscles ache from pretending to be delicate. But worse than the pain is the realization that you're already disappearing. Every day, your old voice gets quieter. Every day, Jinghua sounds more real. Every day, the mirror reflects a girl you don't quite recognize. Historians still argue whether the early Qing dynasty's harem system was more political engine or private hell. But you're living inside both. And no one, not even the birds nesting on the carved roof tiles, knows your real name anymore. They say your body is a temple. Here it's more like a checklist. You are marched single file into the examination hall, a long, quiet corridor, flanked with screens of gold leaf and painted cranes that never blink. The floors are mirror-polished black stone. You're barefoot. Every step feels like walking across someone's judgment. Inside, a trio of elder court women and one elderly physician are waiting. They don't smile. They don't speak your name because, let's be honest, none of them remember it. They refer to you only as a number. You're number 32. You kneel. You bow. You present yourself like a gift nobody asked for. They begin the inspection. Teeth. Straight, white, good. Hair, thick, clean, acceptable. Feet. Small enough, have you been bound? This last part they seem especially focused on. They examine your arches like jewelers inspecting a flawed diamond. Your feet were only lightly bound, then freed when you were selected. You're lucky you can walk. Others wobble like newborn deer. They measure your waist, your ankles, your fingers. They even check your ears. Apparently, long earlobes are considered auspicious. You've never felt less like a person. One of the older women makes a note on a red scroll and clicks her tongue in approval. That sound is probably the highlight of your week. Next, you're given a body scrub so intense it might remove your memories. The matron mutters about cleansing rural stink. It's not personal. She says that to everyone. You're handed a vial of palace perfume, osmanthus blossom crushed pearl, and something that smells faintly like grief. From now on, this will be your scent. It will cling to your robes, your sheets, your skin, like ownership. They take a sample of your handwriting. You spend 15 minutes tracing Tang Dynasty poems with trembling hands, while a tutor evaluates your brushstroke. She circles the character for obedience. Twice. Later, a scribe gently places a finished scroll into a lacquered box. This is your dossier, your file in the Imperial Archives. It includes your new name, your number, your stats, your origin, and a painted portrait that doesn't really look like you, but still manages to capture the part of you that feels most alone. This is how the system works. Your body, your movements, your womb, they're all assets now. Not yours, not ever again. Somewhere in the Forbidden City, an official will read that file. And maybe he'll decide to place you in the rotation. Maybe the Emperor will glance at your name. Or maybe it'll sit on a shelf for 20 years until someone uses it to test brush ink. And in the meantime, you wait. You learn how to walk again, this time in silk shoes so tight you lose feeling in your toes. You learn how to bow low without wrinkling your robe. How to cover your mouth when you laugh. How to never laugh at all. You learn that there are 14 official ranks of concubines. 14 steps between untouchable maid and imperial consort. Each step is lined with crushed dreams and really expensive eyeliner. You're told that even a girl with perfect posture and flawless skin might spend her whole life in rank 14 scrubbing inkstones and arranging fruit bowls without ever being seen by the emperor. But sometimes one is noticed. Sometimes one is chosen. And so you begin to practice looking invisible, beautifully. You listen closely to the veteran girls. They speak in riddles. Everything is a metaphor. She drank too much plum wine means she got too bold. Her garden has gone quiet means she's in disgrace. Lotus season came early is, well, let's just say someone's expecting. One girl tells you in whispered tones about an imperial concubine who once ruled the inner court with just her fan. She'd flutter at once for tea twice, for gossip 3 times, for poison. You don't know if it's true, but the image sticks with you like a strange kind of hope. Your days are structured like a dance. Early rising, bathing, meal rituals, language lessons, posture drills, etiquette recitations, practice bows, practice smiles. At night, you are so tired your bones hum. Sometimes, during lantern hour, you hear music from the inner chambers, soft gu-cheng notes floating like wind across water. You imagine the emperor there, laughing with someone. You wonder what she did to earn his laughter. Historians still argue whether the imperial court's grooming of women was an act of cultural refinement or elaborate imprisonment wrapped in silk. You know the answer. It's both. The fringe fact that sticks in your mind tonight. One of the emperors once banned all spicy food in the harem because it made the women too bold. So now even your seasoning is subject to someone else's insecurities. There's no fire in your rice, only quiet. On your 12th night, you're allowed to step into the garden by yourself. Only briefly, only under supervision. But for a moment, you're alone among moonflowers. You breathe in. The city smells different here. Less like smoke, more like stillness. A moth lands on your sleeve. White, silent, fragile. You don't brush it away. You're learning that beauty here isn't for joy. It's for currency. And the price still climbing. You wake before the sun and lie still listening to the soft rustle of robes, the distant clang of a gong echoing from the kitchens, and the muffled cough of a girl down the hall. Today is your 3rd week inside the palace, and the novelty has worn off. You now know that the real threat here isn't violence, it's order. Relentless, unshakable order. Schedules tighter than silk knots. Rules sharper than jade hair pins. The harem is a kingdom of women, but don't be fooled, this isn't sisterhood. It's a battleground in brocade. Every concubine is your competition, and every smile could be a blade. You spend your mornings navigating the hierarchy, not just the 14 official ranks which are confusing enough, but also the unofficial ones. There are the favorites, the forgotten, the manipulators, the mourners, the girls who walk with purpose, and the ones who drift like ghosts. You quickly learn who's safe to speak to no one, who to copy the quiet ones, and who never makes eye contact because they've already seen too much. There's one woman, the 5th-rank consort Yun, who everyone avoids. She's tall, elegant, and terrifyingly quiet. Her eyes scan like a hawk's. They say she once had the emperor's attention for a whole season, then lost it overnight after a single offhand comment about his favorite horse. You make a mental note, horses are off limits. During afternoon etiquette class, you're tested on tea ceremonies. This is where the real politics begin. How you hold the cup, how you pour without splashing, how long your eyes linger before you lower them. It's a performance so intricate that messing up your pinky angle could be a diplomatic crisis. When you serve consort Yun during the demonstration, she lets the silence stretch long enough for your hand to start shaking. Then finally, she nods once. Approval mockery hard to say. You keep your head bowed so low, it almost becomes a permanent posture. Later, one of the older girls whispers a lesson you never forget. The court is like lacquer, beautiful on the outside, poison underneath. Historians still debate whether the imperial consorts wielded true political power or were simply decorative prisoners. The truth, they wielded social power, and sometimes that was even more dangerous. During lantern hours, gossip becomes the palace's second language. You hear about a girl who accidentally spilled plum wine on the robe of a higher-ranking consort and was reassigned to chamber duty for a month. You hear about another who composed poetry the emperor liked and was immediately promoted 2 ranks. You start writing verses in your head while brushing your hair just in case. Every small detail becomes a strategy. Your perfume too subtle and no one notices you. Too strong and you offend someone's memory. Your robe color. Avoid red unless invited. Yellow is forbidden. It's the emperor's alone. Your voice soft enough to soothe but loud enough to be heard when needed. It's exhausting. And yet some part of you starts adapting. You begin moving differently. Slower, smoother. Your words shrink but sharpen. Your silence becomes a shield. And slowly, so slowly, you begin to notice the others noticing you. One day, a senior eunuch lingers a second too long during a routine inspection. He nods at your posture. Disciplined, he mutters half to himself. It's the first compliment you've received since your name was taken. You don't smile, but you remember. That night, you're permitted into the secondary garden for evening prayer. The lanterns sway gently in the breeze. The moonlight dances off still ponds. The cicadas hum like a lullaby of secrets. As you kneel among the other girls, you glance sideways. Consort Yun is watching you, just for a moment. Then she turns away. You're not sure if that's a threat or an invitation. One strange tidbit you overhear from a kitchen girl: apparently one past emperor believed bathing in melted snow kept his harem pure. He even had eunuchs collect snow from sacred mountains and store it in silver urns. You wonder how purity ever survived bureaucracy. Meanwhile, the hierarchy keeps shifting. Another girl is moved to a higher chamber. Rumors swirl that she was summoned to the emperor's pavilion last week. She walks like her feet don't touch the ground now. You wonder if she's happy, or just better at hiding the cracks. You go to sleep that night in your narrow bed, breathing in the same perfume that every girl wears, listening to footsteps in distant corridors and wondering, what would you give to rise even one step? Your name is still Jinghua. But something inside you is sharpening. You don't trust anyone, not even your reflection. The first time your name is spoken aloud in front of the emperor, it isn't by the emperor himself. It's a eunuch, high-ranking voice like parchment reading from a scroll as he announces the rotation of evening attendants. You're near the bottom of the list, but you're on it. That night you are summoned not to the emperor's personal quarters, not yet, but to an antechamber, one of those rooms built more for staging than comfort. It's cool, gilded, and utterly silent, except for the soft shuffle of slippers. You kneel with the others. 10 girls in pale robes, heads down, breathing synced like scared animals. He enters without fanfare. You feel it before you see him, like the air itself steps back. The Emperor of China is younger than you expected, or maybe just less human. Draped in yellow silk skin, pale from years inside, expression unreadable. He doesn't look at you. Not directly. But he passes close, so close you smell ambergris and lacquer, and your heart starts slamming against your ribs like it wants out. He says nothing. Just selects one girl with the flick of a fan. Not you. you're dismissed. You don't know whether to feel relieved or disappointed. You walk back to your quarters on legs that don't feel like yours. A fellow concubine pats your hand gently. "At least he saw your name," she says. It's meant to be comforting. It's not. You lie awake that night wondering what would have happened if the fan had moved your way. You start noticing patterns. Which girls wear their hair higher? Who suddenly gets better fabric? Who receives bowls of bird's nest soup without asking? Each small change is a signal. You learn to read these signs the way scholars read poetry, carefully, obsessively, and with just enough skepticism to avoid falling for the wrong metaphor. Historians still argue whether the emperor made his own selections or simply let the eunuchs choose based on unseen alliances. You're starting to suspect it's both and neither. Because sometimes no one is chosen. And on those nights, the entire harem breathes easier. Except the ones who are starting to run out of time. One girl, May, has been here for 5 years. Still low-ranked, still unnoticed. Her beauty hasn't faded, but her hope has. She braids your hair one morning and says, "Smile less." They remember the quiet ones longer. You take her advice. At poetry practice, you're handed a new assignment. Write a verse about longing without using the words heart, love, or dream. You stay up late with your inkstone scratching lines about shadow puppets and faded silk. Your tutor reads it, then raises an eyebrow. He copies it onto fine parchment and tucks it into a scroll. You never see that poem again. But 2 days later, you're invited to perform at a court banquet. Not center stage, just background ambiance reciting poetry under plum blossoms. Still, it's something. You wear a robe with embroidered cranes and paint your lips a little redder than protocol recommends. Risky, but remembered. The banquet is dizzying. Music, laughter, dishes piled high with delicacies you haven't tasted in months. The air is thick with rose incense and low-stakes diplomacy. You barely get through your second poem when you feel it eyes on you. Not the emperor's, but his mother's. The Empress Dowager, a woman of stone and silk seated slightly higher than everyone else, eyes like slits in snow. She says nothing, but her glance lasts exactly 4 seconds too long. The next morning, a servant brings you fresh robes and asks if you'd like to visit the upper gardens. You've never been allowed there before. This is how it begins. Favor. It doesn't arrive with trumpets. It arrives like fog, quiet, soft, but it changes everything it touches. A quirky tidbit from your tutor, one past Empress Dowager, once had a personal army of white rabbits trained to hop in formation during court festivals. You wonder how bored you have to be to militarize bunnies. But you remember the lesson: when someone with power looks your way, you don't flinch. You perform. So you walk through the upper gardens, like you belong there. The koi turn lazily in the pond. The wind smells like peonies. And somewhere beneath all this beauty, the floor shifts. You're climbing, slowly, carefully, silently, but definitely up. Your chamber is larger now. Not grand, just less cramped. Enough room to stretch without touching the walls. The bedding is softer. The incense burns longer. And the servants, yes, you now have 2 bow a little deeper when they enter. This is what favor looks like at the beginning. Not a crown, not a coronation. Just better linen. The other girls notice. Of course they do. They don't speak of it directly. That's not how the game works. But their glances linger longer. Their greetings shift, slightly cooler, slightly sweeter. The palace is built on a delicate balance of envy and alliance. And now you're tipping that balance. The Empress Dowager has summoned you 3 times in the last 2 weeks. always under pretext, poetry readings, needlework demonstrations, the occasional tea ritual. But you're not fooled. She's watching, evaluating. Her rooms are heavy with sandalwood and politics. You kneel on embroidered cushions so fine they make your knees ache with guilt. She speaks softly, but every word is calculated. Once she tells you, a girl who speaks little learns the most. Another time, the emperor has many meals, but few appetites. You're not sure if she's advising you or testing you. Probably both. Historians still debate the Empress Dowager's influence during this era. Some claim she was merely a figurehead. Others insist she was the true power behind the throne. You now suspect that merely and figurehead have never belonged in the same sentence as her name. One day she asks about your family. You answer carefully, yes, they are well. No, you haven't seen them. Yes, you miss them. She watches your face the entire time. Not for emotion, for cracks. When you leave her chambers, there's a new robe waiting in your quarters. It's pale lavender, subtle, but expensive. Only women of the 4th rank or higher wear that shade. You are not 4th rank. Not yet. But word gets around. Fast. That evening, you find your tea swapped for chrysanthemum. A clear signal. Calming tea used to reduce swelling and cool the heart. A polite way of saying, keep your emotions in check, darling. You're being watched. And you are. You feel it everywhere. During calligraphy, where your brush is suddenly scrutinized with more care. During dance practice, where your wrist posture is gently corrected by a eunuch who hasn't spoken to you in months. Even during meals where your portions grow slightly larger and the rice is no longer cold. And then just as you begin to settle into this fragile new elevation, the summons arrives. This time from the emperor himself. Not his eunuch, not the Empress Dowager. Him. A delicate scroll sealed in black wax delivered by trembling hands. You're to attend him in the moon pavilion at the hour of the rat. That's just after midnight. You don't sleep. Of course you don't. You bathe in rose water. You wear the lavender robe. You paint your lips so precisely it takes 3 tries. As the hour approaches, your pulse pounds so hard your ears ring. You walk the length of the covered corridor with your head lowered, your feet barely touching the polished stones. The palace is so quiet, it feels like you've slipped into a dream, one with sharp edges. The moon pavilion is smaller than you expected. Intimate, gold-paneled. A single lantern burns beside an inkstone. He's already there, seated by the window. No crown, no robe of state. Just pale silk and a lazy posture. He looks at you, for the first time really looks. You bow so low your forehead brushes the floor. When you rise, he gestures almost casually for you to sit. You do. Then, silence. He studies your face like he's waiting for something to crack open. You wrote the verse about shadows, he says at last. His voice is softer than you imagined. Younger, you nod. He asks why you chose puppets instead of dreams. You answer carefully because dreams vanish. Shadows stay longer. He smiles, just barely. But it's real. You talk for 12 minutes. Not about politics, not even about beauty. About poems, ink, the sound of rain on temple tiles. Then without a word, he rises and leaves. That's it. You sit in silence for another 5 minutes before a eunuch gently escorts you back. You don't sleep that night. Again. But for a different reason. Because now you have something more dangerous than ambition. You have attention. A fringe fact floats into your mind as the lantern flickers out. One Ming emperor once summoned a concubine every night for 18 years, only to secretly meet his male lover in the garden after dismissing her. No one knew until the records were found. Centuries later. So much for imperial clarity. Back in your chamber, you undress slowly, carefully. Your hands tremble just slightly. You look at your reflection in the darkened mirror. Same face, but different eyes. The next morning, the courtyard is quieter than usual. You step into the sunlight and feel it instantly. Something has shifted. Not a storm exactly, but the stillness right before one. A group of lower-ranked girls walks past you and doesn't bow. Not out of disrespect, out of fear. You've crossed a threshold now, from maybe to possibly to seen. Not loved, not favored, but noticed. And in this place that's either the beginning of everything or the beginning of your end. There's a new servant assigned to you now. Her name is Ling, and she's barely older than a child. She doesn't speak unless spoken to. She braids your hair with trembling fingers. She brings news in sideways glances. This morning she whispers, "The girl chosen last month has been moved to the cold palace." You freeze mid-step. The cold palace is where concubines go when they've fallen from grace or been accused of something. The palace never specifies. It's not a prison, not exactly. It's a forgetting. You never hear their names again. You ask Ling what happened, but she just shakes her head. No one says. Only that she spoke when she should have stayed silent. You stare at your own lips in the mirror, and for the first time wonder which words might undo you. Historians argue whether the cold palace was truly a punishment or simply a convenient exile for women who had outlived their usefulness. Either way, the message was clear as disappear quietly or be disappeared for them. Still, even with that shadow, the invitations keep coming. You're asked to attend more court functions. Once to light a lantern at a festival. Another time to play the zither in the garden while foreign envoys walk by pretending not to notice the beauty arranged behind the emperor. At each event, your presence is noted but never highlighted. A delicate balance, visible but not central. Inviting but not threatening. One misstep and you fall into the Empress's shadow. Yes, her. You've seen the Empress twice now, from afar. She wears yellow like it was grown for her. She walks like the floor belongs to her. And she never smiles unless someone else is in pain. The court whispers that her position is secure, but her heart is cold. They say she's lost 2 children, one stillborn, one vanished before his 3rd birthday. You feel a strange sort of pity, but not enough to make you reckless. Because now your name is being spoken again, this time by the emperor's attendants. There's talk of a title, not a high one, but formal, official. You would become more than a name on a scroll. You would be positioned. But with positioning comes enemies. And the first attack comes not with poison or daggers, but with a brush. One morning, your calligraphy is returned torn in half. A note attached reads, "Too much flourish. Empty content. Anonymous." But you know exactly who wrote it. Consort Zhu. Elegant. Clever. Resentful. She had the emperor's favor briefly last season. Then you arrived. And now she never looks at you directly. You ask Ling to deliver a gift to her quarters. Not a challenge. A peace offering. A box of preserved plums. Later that week, you find the plums returned untouched, along with a silk ribbon cut in half. You don't sleep much after that. A quirky tidbit floats through your mind as you toss and turn. One Qing concubine was so disliked by the empress that she was forced to wear blue, the color of mourning, every day for a year. They say she forgot what joy looked like by the end. That night, as you sit by your lantern, light, writing another poem you know will never be read, you wonder what it would be like to be truly loved in this place. Is that even possible? The Emperor speaks to you sometimes now. In passing, he once complimented your hair. Another time asked which season you preferred. You answered autumn. He nodded slowly as if filing that away for later. Is this affection? Or another performance? You don't know, but you keep answering. Because in this place, silence is often interpreted as guilt. During a private walk in the lower garden, he pauses by the pond and says, "Do you ever miss your home?" You tell him yes. He says, "Sometimes I envy you. I haven't been outside these walls since I was 11. You blink, because for a second, he's not the Emperor. He's just a boy, trapped in brocade. You say nothing. Just look out at the koi circling each other in slow, nervous loops. He speaks again. The court eats people from the inside out. You finally turn and say quietly, "Not if you hide the soft parts." He smiles, the second time he ever has. Later that week, a robe is sent to your quarters, dark green, embroidered with cranes in mid-flight, the color of growth, the symbol of rising. You are given a new title, not high, but real. You are now Zhao Yuan, first-class attendant, not a concubine, not yet, but no longer a girl among the masses. Your chamber shifts again. Your meals change. Your position in processions moves 3 steps forward. You don't celebrate, you just breathe and wait for the next strike. Because elevation doesn't protect you, it exposes you. The title changes how they look at you. Not the Emperor, he still glances as if the world exhausts him. But the other women, oh yes, the smiles are tighter now. Compliments taste more like questions. Even the servants seem to bow with a layer of caution, like they're not sure where your shadow ends anymore. You've become part of the hierarchy now. Not at the top, but somewhere above safe. And that's a dangerous place to linger. You start receiving small gifts, sealed scrolls with poetry, imported tea leaves, bracelets with jade charms shaped like butterflies. None are signed. Some are from the Emperor. Others, you're not so sure. One comes with a red tassel, a subtle symbol used by the Empress's faction. You don't touch that one. Just leave it sitting on your table for 3 days until it quietly vanishes. A week later, your name is written formally for the seasonal Imperial procession. It's a sacred ritual. You'll walk with the other ranked women past the ancestral shrines, past the temple bells, all the way to the edge of the plum blossom courtyard. Only 10 are chosen. You are one of them. This is status, visibility, and a test. Everyone will be watching, especially the Empress. Ling helps you prepare. She wraps your robe with slow, careful hands, ties the sash in a style only used for women in their first year of favor, a quiet announcement of arrival. "You'll be beautiful," she says softly. But you notice her glance down as she says it, eyes flickering to the red thread she has secretly sewn into the hem of your sleeve. A talisman for protection. It's the smallest act of rebellion you've ever seen, and the kindest. Historians argue whether such talismans were truly effective or merely superstition. But in a palace, this haunted belief is as good as armor. On the day of the procession, the air smells like jasmine and lacquer. Servants scrub the stones until they shine. Birds are released from bamboo cages to circle above your heads, a visual metaphor for grace and captivity, neatly bundled into one performance. You walk third in the line, behind Consort Zhu, ahead of a lesser attendant whose name you still can't remember. You keep your eyes low, your spine straight. Every step echoes like a heartbeat. The Emperor watches from a raised pavilion veiled behind sheer silk. You can't see his face, only the vague silhouette seated like a god behind the curtain of empire. But you feel his gaze. Later in your quarters, a folded fan is delivered. Inside a single verse, the third crane flew straightest. No name. But you know his handwriting now. A smile starts to form, but you kill it before it shows. Because 2 days later, there's blood in the water. Not yours. A minor consort, barely 18, bright-eyed, known for her flute playing, is found unconscious. No one says the word poison, but no one has to. She survives. Barely. But she's sent away. Not to the cold palace, but somewhere quieter. Somewhere farther. She'll never play the flute again. The same day, a note is slipped under your door. It reads, "Beware the sweet plums. They rot fastest." You burn it without reading it twice. You're smarter than that now. You drink only from your own cup. Taste only what Ling prepares. You start inspecting your robes for tiny alterations. You take slower walks, avoid lonely corridors, memorize the sound of every servant's footsteps near your quarters. This is not paranoia. This is protocol. A quirky tidbit surfaces as you watch a shadow crawl across the wall. One emperor was so afraid of betrayal, he slept on a different bed each night, randomly chosen after the hour struck. Still, he died mysteriously. Of course he did. One evening, you're summoned again. Moon Pavilion, midnight. But this time there's no poetry. The emperor says nothing as you enter, just gestures. You kneel, say your greetings. Wait. He finally says, "They think I don't see." You wait again. He pours tea. Doesn't drink it. They plot around me like dancers who think I've gone deaf. He looks at you directly now, and for the first time you realize something awful. He's lonely. Not politically, not emotionally, existentially. Everyone bows, everyone flatters. No one sees him, except maybe you. So you ask, what do you want them to see? He exhales and says that I'm still choosing. It's not a romantic moment. It's not tender. It's just real. You leave with no gifts, no poems, no praise. Just the knowledge that something fragile passed between you. The next morning, Ling informs you that Consort Zhu has been reassigned to a quieter section of the palace. No explanation given, just a quiet reorganization of power. And now you are second in line. Second. Close enough to feel the crown's heat, far enough that no one will protect you if you fall. The palace feels different now, thicker somehow, like the air before a thunderstorm that never quite arrives. You move through your days wrapped in layers of silk and suspicion. The other women treat you with a new kind of wariness. Not quite hostility, but like watching a candle's flame flicker dangerously close to their own. You've become a piece on a chessboard no one wants to lose, but everyone wants to control. You learn quickly, smiles, here are weapons, and silence is the deadliest sword. One morning, you find a delicate hairpin on your pillow carved from bone, etched with dragons. No note, no signature, just the weight of a warning. You tuck it into your sleeve. Later that day, during a poetry session in the emperor's study, you overhear a whispered conversation between two eunuchs. She's rising too fast. The empress isn't pleased. You swallow your breath. The empress. She's not just a shadow anymore. She's a storm brewing. You recall the stories the palace servants murmur late at night, how one empress, furious at a favored concubine, locked her in a tower with nothing but a mirror, so she could only see herself and slowly lose her mind. Historians debate whether this was a cruel punishment or a political move to keep dangerous women out of sight. Either way, the message is clear. You cannot become a threat, not even to the empress. The emperor, meanwhile, remains an enigma. He is present and absent. sometimes playful and teasing, tossing a fan at your shoulder during court games, other times distant and silent, as if weighed down by invisible chains. You find moments of unexpected warmth in small gestures, a touch on your hand during a dance, a shared smile over a poem. But they are fleeting. In this palace, nothing lingers, not even kindness. Ling remains your steadfast ally. She whispers words of encouragement and caution. "Watch the quiet ones," she says one evening, her eyes dark with worry. "They are the deadliest." You learn to watch too. Not just for threats, but for opportunities. A chance to rise, a chance to survive. One afternoon, during a rare visit to the Imperial Gardens, you catch sight of a small green frog perched on a lotus leaf. The frog is a symbol of transformation and good luck in some folk tales. You smile at the coincidence. A quirky fact drifts to mind. During the Tang Dynasty, concubines were known to keep small collections of jade frogs as talismans, believing they could hop between worlds just as they wished to. Historians still argue whether such beliefs influenced palace politics or were simply superstition. But in your world, every symbol matters. Back in your chambers, you study the delicate hairpin again. You wonder who sent it. Friend or foe, trust is a luxury you can no longer afford. And so you prepare. For what exactly, you're not sure. But the palace whispers promise one thing: nothing lasts forever, especially not favor. Days fold into nights, and the palace clock ticks louder, as if counting down to something inevitable. You grow accustomed to the constant hum of tension, the unspoken rivalries cloaked beneath layers of silk and perfumed smiles. Your footsteps echo in the hallways that have witnessed centuries of secrets, each stone soaked with whispered betrayals and stolen glances. One afternoon, you're summoned to the Emperor's private study. He's alone, sitting behind an ornate desk cluttered with scrolls and inkstones. Without greeting, he holds up a folded piece of paper. It's a poem carefully written in flowing script. You recognize the hand immediately. It's yours. You blink. He says quietly, "You write of storms in still waters." Why you pause, choosing your words? Because even calm hides the threat of a tempest. He nods, eyes dark with something unreadable. Then, without warning, he asks, "Do you trust me?" You don't answer right away. In this palace, trust is currency far more volatile than gold. Finally, you say, "I trust only the night to keep its secrets." He chuckles softly, the sound low and surprisingly warm. There's a pause. He adds, "Good answer." Later, Ling brings news, an invitation to a secret gathering. Only a few concubines attend, those with ambition, those with grievances, those with nothing left to lose. You sit quietly listening as they share whispered stories of survival and scheming. One woman speaks of the Empress's latest plan to isolate you. Another hints at a shadowy eunuch who might be your ally or your assassin. You realize the palace is less like a home and more like a battlefield disguised as a garden party. You think of the frog from the lotus pond and wonder if you can leap beyond this labyrinth. Historians debate whether concubines wielded real power or were mere pawns in the emperor's game. But here, in this room, you sense the faint stirrings of a revolution, not of swords or armies, but of whispered alliances and subtle influence. The night deepens, and with it, your resolve. The following days feel like walking a razor's edge. Your every movement is watched, your words weighed. You notice the subtle shifts, how the servants lower their voices when you approach, how the laughter in the halls hushes like a curtain dropping. A new reality settles over you. Power here is not given. It's taken, stolen, or whispered into being. One evening, Ling brings a small folded paper with a faint scent of jasmine. Inside, a delicate sketch of a phoenix, wings unfurled, rising from ashes. No signature. You tuck it away, heart pounding. the phoenix a symbol of rebirth and resilience. You wonder if this is a promise or a threat. In the shadows, you overhear fragments of conversation. Some speak of a coming festival, where the emperor will present his favored consorts to the court. It's a dangerous event, a public stage where the slightest misstep could mean exile. Or worse, you prepare your finest robes, not for show but as armor, each thread woven with silent prayers. The day of the festival dawns bright and cold. The palace buzzes with nervous energy. You walk in a procession of silk and grace, each step a carefully rehearsed act. The empress watches from her throne eyes, sharp and unblinking. You catch her gaze once icy, calculating. The emperor stands nearby, his expression unreadable. As you move forward, you feel the weight of every gaze. Some admiring, some jealous, some calculating. You remember the stories of concubines who rose too fast only to fall harder. One was rumored to have been poisoned by her own hairpin, a twisted weapon disguised as beauty. Historians still argue whether such tales were cautionary myths or real palace tragedies. You clutch the bone hairpin Ling gave you tightly. After the procession, you are summoned to a quiet garden. The emperor waits beneath a blossoming plum tree, petals drifting like slow snow. He speaks softly. Tonight you will choose. You look at him, heart pounding. Choose what to trust me. A choice heavier than any crown. You nod, knowing that in this palace every trust is a gamble. And every gamble could be your last. The moon hangs low and heavy over the palace that night, casting long shadows that twist and curl like whispered secrets. You follow the emperor through a labyrinth of corridors few are privileged to tread. The air is thick with incense and anticipation. He leads you to a secluded pavilion, its walls draped in silks, embroidered with dragons, and phoenixes, symbols of imperial union and eternal power. The quiet hum of the city beyond these walls feels distant, as if you've stepped into another world entirely. He gestures to a carved wooden chair, inviting you to sit. You comply, heart racing. This is not a casual meeting. He pours tea, the fragrance sharp and bittersweet, and offers you a cup. You accept, fingers trembling slightly. I need you to understand, he begins, voice low. The palace is a game played in shadows. Each smile hides a blade. Each word can be a chain. You nod, feeling the weight of his words settle in your bones. He is not just the ruler of an empire. He is a prisoner of its traditions. Historians still argue whether emperors were truly all-powerful or just actors trapped by ancient customs. Tonight you glimpse the latter. You sip your tea, the warmth spreading through you like a fragile hope. He leans forward, eyes intense. You are not just a concubine. You are a piece on this board, yes, but also a player. And the moves you make will shape more than your fate. The fireflies outside flicker like distant stars. You think of the tales Ling told you of concubines who wielded influence through whispered counsel, delicate diplomacy, and fierce will. A quirky fact surfaces: one famous concubine was said to have saved a dynasty by decoding secret messages hidden in poetry. Historians still debate whether it was clever espionage or palace myth. You realize you might be stepping into that story. The emperor's gaze softens. Trust is scarce here, but I offer you mine. You swallow your fears. Then I will trust you. A pact is made, not spoken aloud, but felt in the silence. Outside, the night deepens. Inside, the palace waits. The days that follow are a dance on a knife's edge, every step measured, every smile calculated. Your newfound connection with the emperor offers moments of unexpected solace, but it also paints a target on your back. Rumors swirl like autumn leaves caught in the palace courtyards. Some say you hold the emperor's favor. Others whisper that the empress plots your downfall. One evening, while practicing calligraphy, you receive a folded note. It's a single line written in elegant script, "Beware the lotus that blooms at night." You smile wryly. Lotus flowers symbolize purity and rebirth, but blooming at night. That's an old metaphor for hidden danger. Ling finds you later and cautions. There are forces here that wear beauty like a mask. Trust no one without testing their shadow first. You take her words seriously. You also remember that during the Song dynasty, concubines used secret signs and embroidery to communicate with allies or warn of danger. Historians argue whether these were clever codes or simple fashions. In your world, they're survival tools. You begin to weave your own subtle messages into your garments. Tiny knots, slight color shifts, signals only Ling can read. One afternoon, you catch the Empress watching you from across the hall, her expression unreadable. The tension between you is a silent duel. A reminder that power in the palace is a currency no one spends lightly. The Emperor's mood grows darker in these days, weighed down by court intrigues and the relentless demands of his position. Sometimes, late at night, you hear the faintest hint of a sigh, drifting from his chambers, a sound rare and almost human. You wonder if he envies your relative freedom or if he too feels trapped in gilded chains. As the Festival of Lanterns approaches, the palace brightens with preparations. Lanterns of every shape and color hang from trees and ceilings, their soft glow reflecting dreams and wishes. You recall a curious fact. During ancient times, concubines would inscribe wishes on lanterns and release them into the night sky, hoping the heavens would carry their desires beyond the palace walls. Historians debate whether this was a form of prayer or a subtle act of rebellion. You find yourself writing your own wish on a small paper lantern, a wish not for wealth, not for status, but for something simpler: peace. The Lantern Festival arrives with a swirl of color and sound, but beneath the beauty lies a tense undercurrent you can't ignore. The palace is alight, but so are the eyes watching you, some filled with curiosity, others with envy or worse. You move through the celebrations like a shadow, your silk skirts whispering secrets against the marble floors. The air smells of sweet incense and roasted chestnuts, but you can't shake the metallic taste of caution lingering on your tongue. At the central courtyard, the lanterns sway gently, casting 1,000 tiny suns against the night sky. Women laugh softly, their faces glowing in the warm light, but their smiles don't reach their eyes. You release your own lantern, watching it drift upward, a fragile flame fighting the darkness. Ling stands beside you, her expression unreadable. "Every light attracts a moth," she whispers. You nod, and every moth risks burning. The Emperor appears suddenly, his presence both comforting and unsettling. He offers you a folded silk fan painted with cranes in flight. You accept it silently. He says tonight the court watches for cracks in the veneer. Stay steady. You feel the weight of his words. Later, in a secluded garden, you overhear a whispered conversation between two courtiers. They say the Empress is gathering allies. Her reach extends even to the eunuchs. You realize your position is more precarious than ever. A strange comfort comes from remembering an odd palace legend. A concubine once survived assassination attempts by adopting the habits of a cat. Silent steps, sharp reflexes, and a knack for disappearing when least expected. Historians still debate whether the tale is fact or fiction, but you decide to take it as inspiration. The festival winds down, the lanterns fading into the night sky like tired fireflies. You return to your chambers, heart pounding but steady. Because in this palace, survival isn't just about favor or beauty. It's about becoming something unseen. a shadow, a whisper, a flame that won't be snuffed out. The palace feels colder now, even with the echoes of the festival still lingering like a distant melody. You tread lightly, every step measured, as if the stones beneath you might betray your presence. The Empress's gaze follows you like a storm cloud, heavy and inevitable. You learn that alliances shift faster here than the wind changes direction. Friends today might become enemies by tomorrow's dawn. Ling warns you one morning, her voice barely above a whisper. Trust the ones who speak softly, but watch loudly. You take her advice to heart. Late at night, you practice your calligraphy, each stroke a meditation, a silent rebellion against the chaos around you. The Emperor's favor remains a fragile thread taut and ready to snap. But you cling to it, because in this world, even a thread of favor can mean the difference between life and oblivion. You recall a curious fact from the Ming Dynasty, where concubines were known to secretly study medicine and herbs, sometimes becoming the emperor's unofficial healers. Historians still argue whether this was empowerment or a clever way to keep them occupied and out of politics. You wonder if learning such skills might give you an edge. One afternoon, you begin gathering herbs, discreetly curious and cautious. Your chambers slowly fill with the faint scent of jasmine and mugwort. You feel a small spark of control return. But palace life never lets you forget its power. During a rare private moment, the Emperor confides, "The throne is a lonely place. I envy your freedom." You smile softly, knowing freedom here is a fragile illusion. Yet you treasure it like a secret garden hidden behind high walls. The Empress's shadow looms larger, and you prepare for the coming storm. Because in this palace, survival is not just about navigating power, it's about becoming the storm itself. The final weeks in the palace feel like walking a tightrope stretched over a pit of vipers. Every glance, every word, every breath feels laden with meaning. You can't afford to misunderstand. The walls themselves seem to close in whispering of betrayals past and dangers present. You find solace only in the quiet moments, the soft rustle of silk, the scent of blooming chrysanthemums, the distant call of night birds. The Emperor's presence remains a paradox, sometimes warmth, sometimes coldness, like a fire that could either keep you alive or burn you to ashes. You recall the stories of concubines who rose to power, shaping empires through cunning and grace. Some say they were the true rulers behind the throne. Others dismiss them as mere ornaments. Historians still debate the extent of their influence. You've become a part of that debate, a living thread, woven into the complex tapestry of imperial history. Ling's quiet strength sustains you. Her friendship, a rare beacon in this storm. One evening you sit by the window, watching the moon's reflection ripple across the palace lake. The stillness soothes the turmoil inside. You realize the palace has changed you, made you sharper, stronger, yet somehow more fragile. The bone hairpin rests heavy in your hand, a reminder of both danger and resilience. As you close your eyes, you whisper a wish, not for power nor for favor, but for peace. Because in this brutal story of silk and shadows, the greatest victory is survival. And maybe a chance at freedom. Now as you let your eyes grow heavy and your breath slow, imagine the soft glow of lantern light flickering outside your window. The world beyond the palace gate slips away, leaving only the gentle hum of night to cradle you. The story you've traveled tonight is harsh, woven with ambition, danger, and fragile alliances. But remember, it's also a tale of quiet strength and resilience. Like the phoenix rising from ashes, you too carry the power to endure, to transform. So let your thoughts drift like petals on a still pond, each ripple easing away the day's worries. Feel the silk of the night wrap around you, soft and protective. And know that tomorrow holds new chances, new paths. Sleep well, friend. Until next time. Tonight, we step into a world of silk and shadows, where power is a whispered secret, and every smile could hide a dagger. You probably won't survive this because the story we're diving into is about a woman who rose from obscurity to become China's only female emperor, Wu Zetian, whose life was as fierce as it was complicated. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments too. I'm curious who's staying up for this one. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin your life in a modest village, born into a family of low status, but with a sharp mind and a hunger for more. The world outside your door is vast and unforgiving, but the sprawling Tang Dynasty palace beckons a place where fortunes can change overnight. You trudge toward the forbidden city, unaware that your fate will soon entwine with emperors. At the age of 14, you enter Emperor Taizong's court not as a queen, not yet even an empress, but a concubine. It's a place of rigid protocol and unspoken rules. You quickly learn that beauty alone won't keep you safe here. Wit and subtlety are your best weapons. The palace is a maze of silk robes and shadowed corridors where courtiers smile with teeth sharp enough to cut. Historians still argue whether your initial role in Taizong's court was that of a favored concubine or a political pawn. Regardless, you witness the emperor's fading health and the rise of his successor, Emperor Gaozong, a man whose reign will change your destiny forever. Even at this early stage, your presence in the palace sets whispers afloat. Some say you're lucky, others call you ruthless. The truth is, you are learning fast, because in this world survival is an art. Remember, this is just the beginning. The seeds of power are planted in these quiet, uncertain days. The moment Emperor Taizong's reign ends, the palace shifts beneath your feet like a sandcastle in the tide. You're no longer the young concubine watching from the shadows. You're now at the crossroads of a new emperor's rule. Gaozong ascends the throne, a man both strong and indecisive, whose court is rife with new tensions and alliances. You navigate this turbulent terrain, understanding quickly that your survival depends on reading every glance and hearing every unspoken word. Your transition from one emperor's court to another is delicate. While you were once just a concubine of Taizong, you now maneuver to become indispensable to Gaozong. The palace is no less perilous. It's a chessboard where every move could mean elevation or exile. The women around you, rivals and allies alike, are equally hungry for favor. Your mind sharpens as you learn the subtle art of influence, planting seeds in whispered conversations, and knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. Historians still argue whether Gaozong's affection for you was born from genuine love or political calculation. Either way, his favor grows, and with it, your power. You observe the Empress Wang, once a formidable presence, now facing the slow erosion of her influence. The palace walls seem to close tighter around you, both tension thick in the air, like incense smoke. In the quiet moments, you reflect on how far you've come from an obscure concubine to a player with a voice that carries weight. But beware, the palace rarely rewards those who rest on their laurels. Your survival depends on not just winning favor, but mastering the deadly game of palace politics. You're no longer just a face in the crowd, you are becoming a force. You've learned the basic rules now, but palace intrigue is a living beast, shifting, snarling, and lurking just beyond your vision. Every corridor whispers secrets, every smile hides a plot. You move through the gilded halls with careful steps, aware that your rivals are watching, waiting for a misstep. The game is not just about gaining favor. It's about survival, about knowing who to trust, which alliances to forge, and when to strike silently. You watch courtiers exchange coded glances and subtle gestures, a folded fan here, a slightly misplaced hairpin there, each a silent message in a language only insiders speak. You learn to decode the palace's hidden dialect, realizing that power is often wielded in silence. A misplaced word can doom you. A well-timed compliment can save your life. Historians still argue whether your rise was fueled more by cunning or by sheer luck. Some say you were a master strategist, weaving webs of influence with impeccable skill. Others claim fortune favored you amid chaos. Whatever the truth, your presence stirs unease among the old guard. Empress Wang and her supporters sense the threat you pose, and the palace becomes a pressure cooker of rivalry and suspicion. The palace's darker side reveals itself: secret plots, whispered accusations, and the use of poison rumored to be as common as tea. Yet, despite the dangers, you find moments of strange calm, quiet gardens, where you breathe deep and the scent of jasmine masks the tension that never truly leaves the air. Remember, in this place, trust is a currency rarer than gold. The fall of Empress Wang is a storm that sweeps through the palace like wildfire. You witness the swift unraveling of her once imperious status, a dramatic reversal that feels both shocking and inevitable. Whispers swirl in every corner, accusations of jealousy, cruelty, even sorcery. Some say her demise was orchestrated by you, a shadowy puppeteer pulling strings from behind the silk curtains. Others insist it was fate's cruel hand. Either way, her death leaves a chilling silence in the air, a reminder that power is as fragile as a porcelain vase and just as easily shattered. The story goes that Empress Wang fell from grace not only because of court rivalries, but also due to her failure to produce an heir. Historians still argue whether your involvement was direct or merely opportunistic, but the palace rumors paint you as the architect of her downfall. The truth is layered with political intrigue and veiled threats, making it impossible to untangle fact from fiction. What's clear is that with Empress Wang gone, the path to the throne widens before you. As you navigate this newfound space, you keep your composure. The heavy weight of impending power presses down, but you mask it with graceful smiles and subtle nods. Your rivals watch you warily, aware that you've just survived a deadly test, one that has left a lasting mark on the palace's balance. In the background, the empire outside the palace walls hums with activity, oblivious to the personal dramas unfolding within. But inside, the stakes couldn't be higher. You learn that in this game, survival often means embracing the shadows. The day you are crowned, Empress feels both surreal and heavy with expectation. The golden crown settling on your head is no mere decoration, it is a symbol of ultimate power, but also a heavy burden. The palace buzzes with whispers, some full of awe, others dripping with doubt. A woman on the throne, the first in China's long history, that's a reality that shakes the very foundations of tradition. You move through ceremonies heavy with ritual silk robes brushing palace floors, incense curling through marbled halls. The courtiers watch you with a mix of reverence and suspicion, their eyes sharp for any sign of weakness. You sense the weight of history pressing on your shoulders. You are not just an empress. You are a challenge to centuries of male-dominated rule. Historians still argue whether your ascent was welcomed by all or met with quiet resistance. Some saw you as a visionary reformer, others a power-hungry usurper. But what's undeniable is your ability to wield power with a deft hand. You begin to reshape the court, altering laws, promoting officials loyal to you, and pushing bold political reforms that challenge the old order. The palace is no longer just a place of survival, it's now your domain. and every decision you make ripples through the empire. You find yourself balancing the razor-thin edge between authority and tyranny, always aware that one misstep could cost you everything. So here you are, Empress Wu Zetian, a woman who has defied odds and history itself. But the journey is far from over. Your reign unfolds with bold strokes, political reforms that ripple through the Tang dynasty like thunder. You dismantle old power structures dominated by aristocratic men, promoting talented officials from humble origins instead. Meritocracy becomes your mantra, shaking the court's foundations and unsettling the privileged. You wield your power with calculated precision, knowing well that reform breeds resistance. The imperial examination system, which had existed before, gains new weight under your guidance. You expand its reach, giving brighter minds a chance to rise regardless of birthright. This was revolutionary for the time, and historians still debate whether these reforms were driven by genuine idealism or political necessity. Either way, you redefine the meaning of leadership in a deeply patriarchal society. Your court becomes a hub of intellectual vigor, attracting poets, scholars, and Buddhist monks alike. The arts flourish under your patronage, weaving a rich tapestry of culture that defies the common expectation of female rulers as mere figureheads. You also strengthen the role of Buddhism in court life, using it both as spiritual guidance and a political tool, a balance as delicate as walking on silk-covered shards. Opposition simmers beneath the surface. Old guard officials grumble behind closed doors, plotting to curb your power. You respond with a mixture of grace and iron, while sometimes employing secret police to monitor dissent, an eerie practice that fuels whispered rumors of paranoia and cruelty. But you remain undeterred, convinced that strong leadership is the only path to stability. You walk the tightrope of reform and control, aware that the palace's history is littered with rulers who fell by overreaching. Under your reign, Buddhism blooms, like a lotus in a murky pond, becoming both a personal refuge and a political instrument. You commission grand temples and statues, transforming religious spaces into symbols of imperial legitimacy. The palace is filled with the scent of sandalwood incense, and monks chant softly in the background as you meditate on the delicate balance of power and faith. You recognize Buddhism's appeal to the common people and the elite alike, using it to unify the empire's diverse populace. Your support of this spiritual tradition is unprecedented for an emperor, male or female. Yet some traditional Confucian scholars grumble about the increasing influence of what they consider foreign ideas. Historians still argue whether your patronage was purely political or a sincere expression of faith. Amid this religious blossoming, the arts flourish. Poetry, calligraphy, and music fill your court. You surround yourself with intellectuals and visionaries, turning the palace into a vibrant cultural hub. This renaissance contrasts starkly with the ruthless political maneuvers you are known for, revealing the complex layers of your reign. Your personal rituals also grow more elaborate. You develop a fascination with omens and astrology, believing the cosmos holds clues to your destiny. Some say you consulted secret seers and mystics, adding an enigmatic aura to your rule that both intrigues and unnerves your courtiers. In the palace's quiet corners, amidst the flickering candlelight, your reign unfolds like a tapestry woven from threads of faith, art, and power. The palace's glittering facade conceals a labyrinth of deadly intrigue. And you are right at its heart. Rival factions plot endlessly, some overt, many in shadow, each vying to influence or topple your reign. You learn that trust is a precious, rare commodity, and betrayal can come from the most unexpected places. A smile from a courtier could mask a knife ready to strike, and a friendly gesture might hide a poison vial. Your intelligence network grows with loyal agents placed discreetly throughout the court and empire. Historians still debate the extent of your secret police, but it's clear you mastered the art of surveillance and counterintelligence. These shadowy tactics, while effective, add to your reputation as both a brilliant strategist and a ruthless autocrat. You face constant challenges from Confucian scholars who argue that a woman on the throne disrupts the natural order. These critics are vocal and influential, pushing back against your reforms and religious patronage. You meet their opposition with sharp wit and iron resolve, sometimes turning to public displays of authority to silence dissent. Behind the scenes, your personal relationships are fraught with tension. Court favorites come and go, each bringing their own alliances and enmities. You navigate these shifting loyalties with care, aware that emotional ties can be exploited by your enemies. The palace is a chessboard, and you are both queen and player, always several moves ahead, but never entirely safe. Your family becomes both a source of strength and vulnerability, tangled in the complicated web of imperial politics. You elevate relatives to powerful positions, ensuring loyalty and expanding your influence beyond the palace walls. Yet this also breeds resentment and jealousy among longtime aristocrats who view your clan as upstarts. Your sons especially become central figures in the unfolding drama. You watch as they grow into men shaped by your will and the palace's brutal lessons. Their ambitions sometimes align with yours, sometimes clash, creating tensions that echo through the throne room and beyond. Historians still argue whether your promotion of family was an act of maternal care or cold political calculation. Meanwhile, court intrigue seeps into your household. Rivalries flare between siblings, and whispers of betrayal circle like vultures. You remain the steady axis balancing affection and authority, knowing that a single mistake could unravel everything you've built. The weight of motherhood mingles with the demands of rulership, a delicate dance between personal devotion and imperial duty. You find moments of quiet reflection in the palace gardens, the fragrance of blooming peonies, a fleeting balm against the constant pressure. Your family story intertwines with the empire's fate, a reminder that even the most powerful rulers are human and profoundly vulnerable. The empire beyond the palace pulses with life conflict and opportunity, and you cannot ignore it. Wars flare on distant borders, rebellions bubble in provinces, and diplomatic envoys arrive with pressing demands. You engage with these challenges with the same shrewdness you apply at court, understanding that the stability of your reign depends on controlling both palace intrigues and the wider realm. Military campaigns are costly and dangerous, but you back generals who demonstrate loyalty and competence, rewarding merit over lineage. This pragmatic approach strengthens the empire's defenses and expands its influence. Yet it also ruffles feathers among established nobility who preferred the old ways. Historians still argue how much your direct involvement influenced military strategy versus relying on trusted advisors. Your diplomatic efforts include careful marriages, treaties, and alliances designed to bolster your position and deter enemies. You understand that power is not only wielded with swords, but with words and promises often whispered in grand halls far from the palace. Amid these external pressures, the empire's prosperity ebbs and flows. You navigate famines, floods, and economic challenges with a firm hand, implementing reforms aimed at relief and stability. Your reign is marked by a rare blend of vision and pragmatism as you balance idealism with the harsh realities of governance. The world outside the palace is as complex and unforgiving as the one within its walls, and you must master both to survive. The stories of your relationships, both personal and political, fill the palace with whispered gossip and sharp intrigue. Your connection with powerful ministers, loyal generals, and even the emperor himself weaves a complex tapestry of influence and affection. Some see you as a loving partner, others as a calculating force always maneuvering to secure your place. Your marriage, a union of convenience and ambition, becomes a focal point of court drama. You balance the roles of wife, mother, and ruler with a deftness that fascinates and frustrates those around you. The emperor's trust in you waxes and wanes, shadowed by jealousy and suspicion. Yet you maintain your position by playing this delicate game with a mixture of charm and steel. Historians still debate the nature of your personal alliances. Were they genuine bonds or tactical moves? The truth is likely a blend of both, as survival in the palace often requires blurring the lines between emotion and strategy. You also face challenges from consorts and concubines, each vying for attention and favor. Rivalries erupt in quiet tension and explosive confrontations, reminding you that power is always contested, especially in matters of the heart. Through it all, your resilience shines. You learn to protect your vulnerabilities and harness your strengths, crafting an image that commands respect and fear in equal measure. As years pass, your legacy begins to crystallize, both celebrated and condemned. Poets sing of your intelligence and reforms, while critics paint you as a ruthless usurper who upended tradition. You watch as stories of your reign morph into legend, sometimes truth, sometimes myth. The court buzzes with contrasting tales, one where you are a wise ruler who lifted China to new heights, and another where you are a shadowy figure who ruled through fear. You implement innovative policies, land redistribution, legal reforms, and patronage of the arts that leave a lasting impact. Yet these achievements are often overshadowed by tales of intrigue, betrayal, and your rumored ruthlessness. Historians still argue about how much of your legend is fact and how much is the invention of political enemies. Your story becomes a cautionary tale, a complex portrait of power, gender, and ambition in a society dominated by men. You embody contradictions, grace and brutality, faith and skepticism, love and cold calculation. You begin to see your place in history as a double-edged sword, a trailblazer who changed the course of China, but at great personal cost. The question lingers, did the ends justify the means? You don't have the luxury to answer. Instead, you keep pushing forward, aware that every decision shapes the future you'll leave behind. The palace quiets as night falls, but your reign's echoes continue to resonate. Your twilight years bring new challenges as you confront the limits of power and mortality. The once vibrant palace corridors now echo with a softer, more reflective tone. You sense that your time is drawing to a close, and the question of succession weighs heavily on your mind. Ensuring the stability of the empire after your departure becomes an urgent concern. You navigate the delicate politics of grooming heirs, balancing your maternal instincts with the demands of statecraft. Some potential successors prove loyal, others treacherous. You understand that the fate of your dynasty hinges on this choice, and history will judge you by it. The palace is filled with moments of quiet contemplation amid the relentless bustle of court life. You take solace in poetry and calligraphy, finding in art a way to process the triumphs and tragedies of your reign. These softer moments reveal a side of you seldom seen by courtiers or historians, a ruler capable of vulnerability and introspection. Historians still debate the extent to which your later years were marked by decline or wisdom, but there is no question that you faced your final days with a dignity that commands respect. The woman who once defied the impossible now contemplates the legacy she will leave behind. The end of your reign is near, but your story remains far from forgotten. As your final days approach, the palace is a blend of solemnity and subtle unrest. Courtiers whisper behind silk screens, some preparing to preserve your legacy, others plotting their own rise. You feel the weight of centuries of tradition pressing on, the moment a stark reminder that even the mightiest fall. You review your life not with regret, but with a clear-eyed understanding of the costs and gains. The reforms you championed, the enemies you outmaneuvered, and the cultural flowering you inspired. These are the threads woven into your empire's fabric. Yet you know that history is a fickle judge, often shaped by those who come after. In private, you find moments of quiet peace, gazing out over palace gardens blooming under a gentle moonlight. The scent of jasmine fills the air, and for a brief time, the harsh clangor of court politics fades into the background. Your thoughts turn to the future, to the empire you helped shape and the lessons it might carry forward. You hope for stability and progress, even if it comes without you. Historians continue to debate the morality and impact of your rule. But one thing is undeniable. You shattered the glass ceiling of Imperial China and left a legacy impossible to ignore. Your story, full of contradictions and complexities, is as human as it is monumental. The final chapter of your reign unfolds with a quiet dignity, the palace lights dimming as you prepare to exit the stage of history. You face your mortality with the same steely resolve that defined your life, aware that power is fleeting, but legacy endures. Your thoughts drift to the countless lives touched by your decisions, nobles, peasants, scholars, and soldiers alike. The transition of power is fraught, but carefully managed, a testament to your enduring influence. You ensure that your vision for the empire persists beyond your rule, planting seeds for future generations to nurture. The rituals marking the end of your reign are both somber and grand, a final testament to the woman who defied convention and reshaped a dynasty. Your story closes not with a whisper, but a lasting echo, a tale told in whispers and histories that still capture imaginations centuries later. The delicate balance of grace and brutality, ambition and compassion, is your enduring hallmark. As the empire moves forward, your memory lingers, a complex symbol of power, gender, and the cost of absolute rule. The questions you left behind inspire endless debate, but also admiration for your courage and tenacity. Now the palace rests, and the night deepens around the empire you once ruled. Your journey is complete, yet the legend of Wu Zetian continues to unfold in every corner of history. We step behind the heavy carved doors of Imperial China's palace, where silk curtains mask secrets darker than the blackest ink. You trudge past lacquered screens and jade-studded halls, the air thick with incense and whispered plots. It's a world of opulence and cruelty, where power dances with danger, and one wrong step could mean a lifetime of misery or worse. You probably won't survive this unscathed, but that's the point. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments so I can send some virtual nightlight vibes your way. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself in the Forbidden City during the Tang Dynasty, the palace a living maze where the emperor's concubines dwell. These women, veiled in silks and secrets, are not merely ornamental. They are pawns, power players, and prisoners rolled into one, living under rules as strict as the jade walls enclosing them. Historically, emperors often had dozens, sometimes hundreds of concubines, each hoping to capture a fragment of favor and security. Here's a historical fact. The Tang Dynasty is known for its relative openness compared to other dynasties, with women enjoying somewhat more social freedom. Yet, palace women lived under intense scrutiny and competition. Quirky tidbit: some concubines reportedly used crocodile dung as sunscreen, a practice that thankfully didn't catch on outside the palace walls. Historians still argue whether concubines wielded real political influence or were simply ornamental in the grand chessboard of imperial power. As you glance at the painted screens depicting phoenixes and dragons, remember, this world is a delicate dance of beauty and brutality, of dreams and despair. You're just getting started. You trudge deeper into the shadows of the palace, where the selection of new concubines begins a process as chilling as it is meticulously orchestrated. Imagine young girls often plucked from their families with little say, paraded before the emperor's agents like precious jade to be examined and chosen. It's a grim lottery masked by ceremony and spectacle. You probably wouldn't want to be one of them, but here you are, feeling the weight of countless hopeful eyes staring back at you. Historically, emperors like those in the Ming and Qing dynasties held formal beauty selection events where girls aged as young as 9 could be chosen. This practice reinforced social hierarchies. Most girls came from lower nobility or commoner families desperate for a chance at better fortune. Quirky fact, some hopefuls resorted to bitter herbal concoctions to darken their teeth, a beauty trend at the time, thinking it might improve their odds. Historians still argue whether these selections were more about political alliances or genuine personal preference. Your senses tingle with the echo of silk rustling whispers of nervous girls and the steady gaze of palace eunuchs, watchers of secrets and enforcers of rules. The emperor's choice wasn't merely about beauty. It was about lineage, health, and potential to bear heirs. The stakes were lethal rejection, often meant being sent back with no promise of a better life, sometimes even worse. And acceptance, a gilded cage, with its own brutal demands. You feel the weight of fate pressing down, a reminder that behind the splendor, these girls' lives were gambles with a razor's edge. You move through the labyrinth of power and protocol, where the women of the palace are arranged in a rigid hierarchy that dictates everything from their attire to their daily bread. At the pinnacle sites the empress, an almost mythic figure revered and feared, while below her a dizzying array of consorts, concubines, and attendants jostle for scraps of attention and favor. You quickly realize that knowing your rank isn't just about prestige, it's about survival. Historically, the imperial harem was a strict caste system. For instance, during the Qing dynasty, there were precise titles such as noble consort, imperial concubine, and so forth, each with clearly defined privileges and punishments. Interestingly, the number of concubines could be limited by law, but emperors often stretched these rules to suit their whims. Quirky details: some concubines used nail colors and specific hairstyles to signal their rank or mood, sort of like ancient palace mood rings. Historians still argue whether this hierarchy offered women real agency or merely enforced their subjugation. As you weave through this maze, you catch snippets of hushed conversations, alliances forming and dissolving faster than silk slips through fingers. The empress may command the court, but a favored concubine can hold the emperor's heart, and with it, deadly influence. Jealousy isn't just petty. It's a weapon as sharp as any sword in the palace. Your heart tightens, realizing that here, every glance, every smile, every whispered word carries a heavy price. You find yourself waking early, the soft rustle of silk sheets and the faint scent of jasmine filling the air. Daily life in the palace is a curious blend of rigid routine and endless waiting, less like luxury, more like a gilded cage humming with invisible tension. You shuffle through lessons on poetry, calligraphy, and etiquette, all while your thoughts drift to the one person whose favor determines your fate, the emperor. Historically, concubines followed a strict daily schedule designed to maintain their beauty and composure. During the Ming dynasty, they rose before dawn, practiced needlework, attended imperial rituals, and endured long hours of training in court etiquette. Oddly enough, some concubines kept small personal gardens or pets, a quirky means to claim a tiny space of comfort in a controlled environment. Historians still argue whether such routines fostered solidarity among women or simply reinforced their isolation and competition. You hear the faint murmur of the emperor's footsteps echoing through the palace halls, a constant reminder that your worth hinges on moments you might never fully control. Meals are served quietly, punctuated by the soft clinking of porcelain. while you steal brief glances at the carved jade ornaments, symbols of power and permanence, contrasting with your fragile existence. The palace is a world where every action is a performance, every smile a calculated move, and patience a hard-earned virtue. You're caught in this endless cycle, wondering which day might finally tilt the scales in your favor or end your story altogether. You can almost taste the bitterness lingering in the palace air as jealousy weaves its tangled web. Rivalries among concubines aren't just whispered secrets. They're strategic battles fought with poisoned glances, veiled insults, and secret alliances. The struggle for the emperor's favor is fierce. Every smile or slight can mean the difference between lavish gifts or cold exile. Historically, jealousy in the imperial harem could be deadly. During the Qing dynasty, some concubines resorted to intrigue and even poisoning to eliminate rivals. A quirky but dark tidbit, it's rumored that some women used love potions or herbs that could cause illness, though historians debate the veracity of such claims. Scholars still argue whether these tales are sensationalized myths or reflections of actual palace intrigue. You feel the tension coil tighter as the concubines maneuver through ceremonies and dinners, each aware that the emperor's gaze might fall on another. The empress watches from her throne, sometimes enacting brutal punishments to maintain order and dominance. Yet the real power often lies with those who master subtle manipulation, a whispered rumor here, a carefully placed bribe there. Jealousy isn't mere emotion here. It's survival strategy, a weapon sharper than any sword. And you caught in this poisonous game, wonder how many have lost themselves or their lives in pursuit of favor. You stand at the edge of a cold marble courtyard, the distant clang of servants echoing faintly as you sense the delicate balance of power shifting with each passing day. The concubines' lives are punctuated by moments of grace and cruelty. None more so than when a favored consort bears a son. Suddenly, the stakes skyrocket. The mother's influence can elevate or destroy entire families. Historically, bearing a male heir was the ultimate currency in the imperial harem. During the Tang and Ming dynasties, sons of favored concubines could become heirs apparent, overshadowing even the empress. Quirky fact, some concubines carried miniature portraits of their sons hidden beneath their robes, a secret display of pride and hope. Historians still argue whether this mother-son bond truly empowered concubines or further tightened the grip of palace politics. You can almost hear the whispered promises and threats exchanged in shadowed corridors as concubines jockey for position, their futures riding on the tiny shoulders of infants. Yet sons were also pawns in larger political games, often used to secure alliances or provoke rival factions. As you watch a nurse carefully cradle a newborn, you realize that the birth of a son was not just a miracle, but a moment that could tilt the entire empire's balance of power, sometimes for better, often for worse. You drift deeper into the palace's secret nights, where whispered plans and hidden tears shape futures more than the glaring sun. Sleep comes hard in these stone walls, and the silence is heavy with unspoken fears. You feel the pulse of ambition and desperation, as concubines scheme to secure their place, knowing that every favor won might come at a deadly cost. Historically, nighttime in the Forbidden City was a realm of secrets. Some concubines took to memorizing imperial edicts by heart, preparing for sudden shifts in court politics. Oddly, some also practiced secret arts like astrology or divination, hoping to foresee their fates. Historians still argue whether these mystical practices were widespread or simply romanticized stories. You catch the faint scent of sandalwood incense mingling with the chill of stone corridors as the delicate balance of trust and betrayal tilts on a knife's edge. Allies could vanish overnight, and whispered accusations might seal a woman's doom. The emperor's moods were mercurial, swinging between cold indifference and sudden favor. In this dark hour, you grasp how survival required more than beauty or wit. It demanded an iron will, a heart capable of bearing both love and ruthless calculation. You awaken to the heavy presence of tradition, pressing down like the embroidered silks on your skin. Rituals dominate every breath you take, from the morning incense offerings to the evening ceremonies honoring ancestors. The weight of centuries is palpable. Here, your life is woven into the fabric of imperial legacy, beautiful yet suffocating. Historically, concubines played a key role in state rituals, often participating in elaborate ceremonies that reinforced the emperor's divine right. For example, during the Han Dynasty, the imperial consorts were integral in the worship of heaven and earth. Quirky fact: some concubines were trained to sing and perform ritual dances believed to bring good fortune. Historians still argue whether these roles truly empowered women or simply used them as tools in patriarchal displays of power. You watch as the palace fills with incense smoke and the rhythmic clapping of wooden blocks, feeling the pressure of duty crushing the fragile moments of personal freedom. Every gesture is scrutinized, every misstep a potential scandal. The ceremonial world outside these walls is one of grand spectacle. But within, it's a gilded cage where appearances mask the brutal reality. You realize that beneath the delicate fan dances and perfumed whispers lies a harsh truth. The concubine's life is a tightrope walk between devotion and despair, all under the unblinking gaze of history. You feel the sting of cold marble underfoot as you navigate the dark labyrinth of palace politics, where whispers echo louder than shouts. The concubine's alliances shift like desert sands, fragile and treacherous, yet crucial for survival. You're learning that power here isn't just about favor, it's about who you can trust and who you must outwit. Historically, factions within the imperial harem could sway political decisions. During the Ming Dynasty, concubines' families often gained influence through their connections, sometimes sparking rivalries that affected entire provinces. An odd fact: some concubines kept secret messengers disguised as eunuchs to communicate with their kin. Historians still argue whether these internal politics destabilized the empire or merely reflected its complexity. You sense the weight of whispered plots and hidden messages, the delicate dance of smiles concealing daggers. Trust is a rare currency here, and betrayal is never far behind. The emperor's favor can lift you to dizzying heights or plunge you into oblivion without warning. In this world, every conversation, every glance, carries the potential to change destinies, reminding you that the palace is as much a battlefield as it is a palace. You wander through the palace gardens, where the cherry blossoms bloom with stunning beauty. But their petals fall quickly, much like the fleeting nature of your own influence. Outside the grand halls, the common people remain oblivious to the struggles within these walls, yet they are indirectly shaped by the consequences of your existence. Historically, the lives of concubines affected the broader society, as the emperor's choices in the harem could influence political alliances, military appointments, and economic policies. During the Qing dynasty, certain favored concubines' families amassed wealth and power, creating ripple effects far beyond the palace gates. A quirky tidbit: some concubines sent gifts and support to their hometowns, turning local festivals into grander affairs. Historians still argue whether concubines' influence strengthened or weakened the imperial system. You think of the farmers toiling in distant provinces, unaware that a single decision made here might change their fate. Your rise or fall is more than personal drama. It's a thread woven into the empire's vast tapestry, where power politics and people are inseparable. The palace walls may isolate you, but the ripples of your life spread across the empire, shaping history in ways both subtle and profound. You feel the chill of isolation settle in as the seasons turn each day, blending into the next with a monotony that grinds your spirit. Despite the silk robes and delicate trinkets, the palace walls close in like a prison. You long for freedom, for a life beyond whispered gossip and invisible chains. Historically, many concubines lived in near isolation, cut off from their families and former lives. During the Tang dynasty, some concubines were forbidden from leaving the palace. Their only companions, the eunuchs and other women who were often rivals. An intriguing fact, some concubines kept secret journals hidden beneath floorboards, recording their true feelings. Historians still argue whether these writings reflect the general experience or are exceptional cases. You imagine the sun setting over the distant mountains, a freedom so close yet unattainable. The emperor's favor can bring comfort, but also deeper entrapment. Every act of kindness might be a calculated move, every smile masking silent desperation. In this gilded cage, the line between luxury and loneliness blurs, reminding you that power often comes at a price paid in solitude. You hear the soft footsteps echoing down the corridors, a reminder that change is always near even in the seemingly eternal stillness of the palace. Rumors swirl like autumn leaves, whispers of rebellion, court intrigues, and shifting alliances that threaten to topple even the most carefully constructed thrones. Historically, concubines sometimes played pivotal roles in political upheavals. During the Ming dynasty, a favored concubine's influence helped spark a rebellion that changed the course of history. Quirky details: some concubines use secret codes woven into their embroidery to send messages. Historians still argue whether their involvement was direct power or subtle manipulation behind the scenes. You imagine the emperor's face in flickering candlelight, a mask hiding his true intentions. The palace is alive with tension, each faction ready to pounce. As a concubine, you're not just a bystander, but a player in a deadly game, where one misstep can mean ruin or survival. The precariousness of your position sharpens your senses, and you realize that in this world, power is as much about perception as reality. You stand at the edge of the imperial court, where spectacle meets cold calculation. Every smile you offer must be measured, every gesture a careful balance between submission and influence. Here, your beauty is both weapon and shield. Yet the cost is far greater than the admiration it brings. Historically, concubines' roles extended beyond mere companionship. They could sway political decisions and shape imperial policies. During the Song dynasty, some concubines acted as advisors, their opinions sought behind closed doors. An odd fact, concubines sometimes disguised themselves to observe court affairs incognito. Historians still argue whether these women wielded genuine power or were puppets in the emperor's game. You sense the weight of centuries pressing on your shoulders, knowing that each choice echoes through the corridors of time. The court is a stage, and you play your part to survive, to protect what little control you have over your destiny. In this delicate dance of power and vulnerability, you find both your strength and your tragedy entwined. You feel the flicker of hope as you glimpse the possibility of escape, whether through motherhood favor or cunning. Yet each triumph is shadowed by the harsh reality that your fate is never truly your own. The palace is a place of fleeting joys and long-lasting scars. Historically, giving birth to a male heir could elevate a concubine's status significantly, sometimes securing her family's future. During the Han dynasty, imperial consorts who bore sons were celebrated, though the competition was fierce and often deadly. A quirky fact, some concubines commissioned secret talismans to protect their unborn children. Historians still argue whether motherhood offered true power or merely a temporary reprieve. You weigh the bittersweet taste of success against the ever-present threat of jealousy and betrayal. The palace is a labyrinth of shifting loyalties, where today's ally might become tomorrow's enemy. Your story is one of resilience and tragedy, a testament to the indomitable spirit that survives even in the darkest corners of imperial life. You now stand on the precipice of history, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down as the final acts of your story unfold. The empire itself seems to hold its breath, caught between tradition and change, while your fate is woven into the grand tapestry of Imperial China. Historically, the legacy of concubines shaped dynasties, influenced rulers, and left lasting marks on culture and society. During the Qing dynasty, the echoes of concubine politics resonated in the halls of power long after their reigns ended. An intriguing tidbit: some concubines' lives inspired popular folklore and operas, immortalizing their struggles. Historians still argue how much these stories reflect reality versus romanticized myth. You reflect on the long shadow cast by your life, both brutal and beautiful, and how it rippled through generations. The palace may have been your prison, but your story became part of China's enduring history. A reminder that behind every emperor's throne stands a world of unseen lives. As your journey concludes, you carry with you the lessons of power, sacrifice, and survival, whispered softly through time. You let the echoes of the past gently fade the palace walls, dissolving into the quiet night. The story of a concubine is one woven with complexity, where power and pain intertwine like the delicate threads of a silk tapestry. Though the details of your life were harsh, the grace with which you endured leaves a lingering warmth in the heart of history. Now, as the shadows lengthen and the world outside your window grows, still rest assured that your story has not been forgotten. Let the soft hum of the night carry you away from the court's intrigue and into peaceful dreams. Remember, in every whispered tale lies a spark of resilience, a flicker of hope. Thank you for journeying through this time with me. Sleep well and sweet dreams.